Hate it when that happens. All right, I'll just hold the paper way, way far away. Okay, so my twin sister, Kristen Ellis, is the Acting Associate Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Regulatory and Policy Affairs at DOE-EM. Somebody outside said, I'm really looking forward to seeing Christine Ellis and Kristen Gellis. I'm like, on the same stage. That won't be confusing. We have Joel Bradburn, manager of the Portsmouth Paducah Project Office. Thanks for being with us, Joel. Dave Carlson, president of Waste Control Specialists. Happy to hear updates about that important facility. Seth Kirschenberg, who you already all know. And then Robbie Bennett, CEO of the Savannah River Site Reuse Organization. So nice to meet you, Robbie, in person. All right, we have some prepared topics to kind of get these guys going, but I thought it would be useful because we had this focus on early career. There may be some people in the audience who aren't familiar with the complex and sort of the context and framework within which we are going to have this discussion. So this is a map from the Disposal Drives Cleanup publication, but it shows you, and I used this on Monday in EM 101, it shows you the location of the US's relatively rich capacity in low-level and mixed-level waste disposal. So the purple sites are federal sites. I will make the same caveat. In Paducah, there's a star there's a very important parenthetical that's a potential site for an on-site disposal facility for the debris to be generated by the future D&D activities of the gas use diffusion plant. A couple important highlights. The Nevada Star is a regional low-level, mixed low-level waste disposal facility. It can accept, it's the only DOE site that is actively operating as a regional disposal facility, accepting waste from qualified generators, certified generators from other DOE sites. You might remember that Hanford, in our programmatic EIS, Record of Decision, was a regional disposal facility, but I went back and looked it up. It's been 20 years since the Initiative 297 fight, but basically by matter of policy decision, we suspended, DOE suspended disposal at Hanford from offsite generators until such time that we've got waste treatment activities happening at WTP, and whether or not it's revisited, I think is probably an unlikely scenario. The blue sites, very importantly, 2 commercial disposal facilities that the Department of Energy has come to rely on significantly for certain waste streams. It's the Energy Solutions facility in Clive, Utah, and David's facility in West Texas, in Andrews, Texas, the Waste Control Specialist facility, which is actually a complex. It's made up of multiple disposal facilities. Some of which were generated specifically to take waste from DOE sites. I'm thinking of the byproduct material disposal facility, which started with the storage pads from Fernald Silos, looking at Denny Carr back there. Remember when we made WCS what it is today, Dennis? Yeah, I remember. Anyway, so this is a wealth of disposal. This is fantastic. I went ahead, WIP is also on there as a important disposal facility, but everybody knows, hopefully, it's a geologic disposal facility, not near surface. It can only take defense transuranic waste. While it has a very robust facility, probably could take other stuff. That's not the kind of thing we love to talk about openly, although I'll try and push that envelope today. I went ahead and created this table over here just to remind us of what has a path, what doesn't have a path. It's a little bit of an oversimplification, but multiple outlets for low-level, mixed low-level waste. Very positive news, and we'll talk about it here on the panel. We have multiple disposal sites selected for depleted uranium. Byproduct material has a home, Defense True has a home, non-defense True and GTCC. I chose TBD because there's an EIS out there that sooner or later we might actually get Congress's help and some direction to move forward. And then the big question mark, which Erica Bickford's presentation was speaking to, and it's going to be a decade-long or more journey for where high-level waste and spent fuel can go, even on an interim basis. So with that backdrop, let us get into it. Let's see, the first topic, I like to start positive. I find that this is a good way for us to begin the dialogue. Just last month, DOE and UCOR celebrated the groundbreaking of the new on-site disposal facility that was highlighted in both Ike's presentation as well as in Ken's. That's certainly critical to the future cleanup. You heard, I think Ken today used the term, the waste factory is the center of the universe, and I can't agree more with that. But there are some other successes across the complex, and I bet some of you have stuff you want to share. And Dave, you want to go first?
Yeah, so just to touch on two, I'll start with a commercial one that's interesting, and that is, I hate to see nuclear power plants shut down, but currently there's 8 nuclear power plants in decommissioning, and we are actively taking waste from all 8 of those that are in decommissioning, all the way from debris and soils to reactor internals. So what's been proven by the industry is that when we do commission nuclear power plants, we can get it done. We can get it done for the amount of money that's in the decommissioning funds, and that's been a real positive. I think the NRC appreciates the fact that now that we've gone through that, we've demonstrated that that can happen. The second thing I wanted to bring up is on the DOE side of things, and that is DU disposal. We've been disposing at WCS of depleted uranium from the Department of Defense penetrators for about 5 or 6 years now. But just over the past year, and most recently in much higher volumes, we've begun to receive cylinders from both Portsmouth and Paducah. Those are going to their permanent disposal destination. Again, when we think about depleted uranium, we think about radium-226 and the long half-lives of those things. They're going into our facility where we evaluate out to 1 million years, and can definitely show the public that there will be no impact from that depleted uranium that's going to disposal anytime in that next 1 million years or so.
So congratulations to DOE-EM for seeing that through to fruition at last. That was a long journey. As I was looking back at my notes for EM 101, I think the EIS, the supplement analysis that we did for depleted uranium disposal was back in like 2006, 2007 timeframe, and the limited rulemaking that the NRC was doing. So also, thank you, Dave, for seeing that through, and congratulations to Joel for the successful shipments. Do you want to comment on that at all?
Actually, because we're talking about it here and not many people have heard about it, that is always a very good thing, right? So in our world, in our land. But
Yeah.
No, appreciate WCS. They've been very obviously instrumental, not only on the receiving end, but also facilitating logistics, and the team's done well. Loading went well on the sites, both at Portsmouth and Paducah. Rail car shipments went out. Looking forward to doing this for a lot longer and many more to come.
Good, excellent, fantastic. Okay, so Kristen, let's go to you next. Any major disposal successes that you want to highlight, kind of complex-wide? I think there might be some stuff that's been happening in Federal Register space around test bed. Hint.
You said to mention that in a later question, but certainly I wanted to kind of comment on a couple things that are successes, and maybe they don't meet the traditional definition of disposal, but I think it's a really good example of how everything is so interconnected, and you mentioned that in your intro remarks. And ongoing progress, ongoing cleanup, and creating work completion that facilitates the need for disposal, I think is something we should take as a success as well. And so recent successes that I think this group would be interested in, and I'm going to try and avoid acronyms. I know it's challenging, but we'll do our best here. The waste incidental to reprocessing, also known as WEIRS, if you hear a conversation about that, we were able to complete that at Hanford this year, which will help kind of facilitate our ongoing tank waste treatment. And also I want to, and I know we'll talk about that later today as well, the negotiation for the new operating permit at WIP. It continues, again, having the ability to use that resource for us is going to be instrumental moving forward. And then, I'll mention again, in case you didn't hear, we were able to have hot operations at the IWTU in Idaho, and just want to continue to, celebrate that achievement, because I know, as Ike mentioned, several people in this room have been watching that one for many, many years. And then to your point about, I think you used a rich number of opportunities that we have in our arsenal or in our portfolio. Just want to emphasize one quick point. I was able to go to the trip to the Fukushima plant with Ike that he mentioned in his remarks, and to see a very small footprint and the challenges of what they have to accomplish there. And, again, what we heard again and again was, oh, but you have so much real estate available to you in the United States, and you have so much bigger, flexibility to address some of these issues. I think sometimes it's easy to forget that we do have different lens by approaching these issues. But again, emphasizing the interconnectedness of our entire disposal system is requiring a very complicated interconnectedness among state regulators, tribal nations, our local officials, and frontline communities. And, success is always when we're able to have ongoing partnership and ongoing discussion and, status quo that's not making news, I think is a success that we should take credit for as well.
That's great. And I think that not making news is sort of what Joel was alluding to, right? When people aren't screaming about it, that's a good development. We think back to when DOE decided to invest in waste control specialists and make some of the very significant policy decisions around future federal ownership of the federal cell when it's decommissioned. That was a very deliberate action. Although there were 2 regional disposal facilities, it was about creating more options so that the politics at Hanford didn't make Nevada the only site that could accept waste higher than Class A levels, right? And so the entrance of WCS into the market was a really critical thing. And I think DOE's continued utilization, competition and award of nationwide disposal contracts and the preservation of 2 commercial options, at least, right, are critical to keeping all of those opportunities, all of those alternatives alive. So I really appreciate your comments. Thanks. All right, Joel. You've done some great stuff in terms of the development of disposal capacity. Tell us about your waste factory.
So I would say team effort, right? And so at Portsmouth, pretty cool things going on. So you mentioned on-site disposal. So we have just completed wrapping up 326 demolition debris placement. Just some factoids about on the order of 165,000 cubic yards of debris placed. And part of our remedy there is placing debris with impacted soil. So we've also excavated and used about 235,000 cubic yards of soil excavated from one of our plume areas, 3 of our plume areas, to place that. And the things that everybody also likes to hear, under budget and under schedule. So coming in about 18 months ahead of schedule, about $20 million under budget. And actually the most important thing is the contractor's ticking about 5 million safe work hours. So a lot of big activity going on, a lot of heavy equipment, a lot of coordination required, and most important to us is safety. So got a great team, got a great federal staff, great contractor, great regulator, and great community support. And so this is part of the big recontour of the Portsmouth site to support what you've been hearing about, the cleanup to clean energy. So again, if you haven't been to Portsmouth, man, you need to go. Okay, make you feel good about your job.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Were there, people want to clap for that? Yeah, we can do that. That's pretty exciting. It wasn't that long ago that the siting of an on-site disposal facility at Portsmouth was something that we were uncertain about. So that's great that it's come so far, and congratulations on your team's success. Can you share how did you incorporate the lessons from Oak Ridge's first MWIF experience, and then share back your successes on OSDF with them for EMDF? Like how does that cross-site communication happen?
So we always stay close with our other sites. A lot of the lessons learned you incorporate, but those lessons learned, we took from actually years ago, not just Oak Ridge, but also Fernald. And so if you talk about, disposal cells specifically, I think they incorporated some design changes to make the cell more efficient. Also, specifically, it's about where it goes. You have to, incorporate, local design, consideration in it as well. But then the other bit is logistics. Logistics is important, and I think a lot of lessons learned there. Again, and then you take the lessons learned from other places, but then you also challenge your workforce, right? And at the end of the day, they're the folks doing the job. And so you go, hey, here's what we've had at the other sites. What do you think about that? Right? And so you let them come up with solutions, and they actually then, that's where you knock it out of the park.
That's awesome, thanks. I'm not going to let you go just yet, Joel, I apologize, and this is a surprise question. Are you still sending waste to Nevada as well for disposal?
Actually, we did send some just not too long ago when we wrapped up. Some of the waste from the 326 building, we could not wouldn't meet the waste acceptance criteria for on-site disposal at Portsmouth. And so we did send some stuff to Nevada. A lot of the inventory that needs to go there, I think we've done the big lift on that. And so I'm sure we'll still have some stuff that continues to be disposed of in Nevada, but on a much smaller scale. Because
most of your stored legacy wastes have been dispositioned, right? You're pretty much dealing with new gen D&D wastes predominantly, as well as the depleted uranium conversion product.
And we'll still have some stuff, the assay, the U-235 assay is too high to go in on-site disposal. And so we'll have to look at, disposal options, principally Nevada for that. But the big lift is done.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Kristen, is it too early to talk high-level waste interpretation?
It's never too early to talk high-level waste interpretation.
All right. So this summer, EM issued its second decision in the associated NEPA analysis for a second Savannah River waste stream to be dispositioned using the very important high-level waste interpretation, which is an addendum, a modification to DOE 435. Let's talk a little bit about that and the importance for Savannah River site, bring some new panelists into the conversation. As we do, I want, maybe the audience doesn't know this, but I'll remind you, if you do, it's been more than a 5-year journey here on this high-level waste interpretation. It was back in 2018 that the public comment period started, and it had been years of slugging it out with legal before then. So this is an important policy development. The original testbed concept had been going for years even by then, right? So I feel like this is something we have to keep making some progress on, sort of like Kara's comment, or I'm sorry, somebody's comment about not losing the continuity of progress on a platform such as this. She was talking about consent-based siting at that point, though. So can you give us an overview first of the FONSI, and then we'll hear from some others, okay?
Okay, we'll start with FONSI. For everyone who did not take environmental law, that's part of one of the ways you can process a NEPA application, also known as the National Environmental Policy Act. I'm really like anti-acronym today, so I'm something in my drink, I guess. But yes, you've alluded to the second waste stream. Actually, it's the second waste stream from Savannah River site, so hopefully, Rob, you'll want to weigh in on this conversation sometime soon. And I think it's an important science-based part of our toolbox of ways of thinking about addressing our waste challenges. You heard in the conversation with the Nuclear Energy Office, I think there's plenty in the room who were around EM meetings when we were talking about Yucca Mountain on a daily and weekly basis, and that's not our reality at the moment. So having ways of treating waste is always going to be important for us moving forward. And I was really honored to be part of the starting of this process back in 2018 and getting that first waste stream across the finish line and participating in an event at Savannah River about that. And now having a second waste stream coming out of Savannah River. And we're really excited and looking for other potential options beyond the first two. But I think like anything else in EM, it's not a 1 week kind of process. And so we'll continue to look for other options beyond the first two, but excited to get the first two out the door. And I know there's interest from some of our local communities in exploring this interpretation at Hanford, and that is not something that the state of Washington is interested in at this time. So that's kind of I'm going to get ahead of but can we do it at Hanford question that we get frequently. So that's any kind of process like this that we're going to undertake is going to require support from regulators and tribal nations and local officials. So, we're happy to have the support of the Savannah River stakeholders and regulators in the second waste stream and looking forward to the future.
Okay. I'm going to let Robbie comment, and then I'm going to comment because, I can't not comment. Robbie.
Thank you, appreciate it. From a community standpoint, I've been fortunate. I've been on the board of the community reuse organization for about 9 years. So when this conversation was brought to our attention, we took a very concerted effort. We wanted to make sure that everybody understood the impact of high-level waste, what that meant, and how can we help the site get as much waste off the site as possible for the time being. This interpretation is a huge win for the community. It's something that we are excited about. We want to see it used. I'm a recovering economic developer, so I fully understand having tools in the toolbox, but the tools, once you have them, have to be leveraged. You've got to put them to use. Long term, I think a lot of the communities would love to see this interpretation actually be a definition change down the road. I think that would help everyone in the process. As we can see on the map, until we figure out what we're doing with high-level waste, anything we do on this to help the communities see progress is going to be significant for all of us. And it is a wonderful opportunity, and got to thank everybody at Savannah River Site for what you do on this process. So thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. Really well said. And so maybe my comment addresses both points. I think I think EM's already doing a good job of this, because I like the little video on the high-level waste interpretation page on the website, I think. So kudos to you for how far you've gone. I will say that it's so hard to explain it to people, yes. Right? It's so hard to explain it to people. So I would love the opportunity to talk with you more, partner with you about how we can demystify this issue and make it a very clear, predictable path, so people not just understand what's happened, but also not fear it. It's not scary. It's not black box. It's science-based. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly not risky, right? And we're taking baby steps with very benign waste streams at this point, mm-hmm. but the potential for this, for waste streams of greater radioactivity that are still very defensively low-level waste, once fully characterized, I think is huge. So I echo Robbie's point. So how can we communicate the kind of the core steps of what it takes? And the first one was 5 years ago, and now you've done another. And it's not because it took 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there were some core things that had to happen, including NEPA analysis. But how quickly do you think we could attack a stream that's relatively easy? Could it be 2 years from start to finish?
Again, we don't move very quickly at the department. We're on another topic that I know was mentioned in an earlier presentation. We're in the process of revising DOE Order 435.1, and some of the lawyers who were in the room when we were doing this the first time in 1999 are still very reminiscent of everything that happened in 1999. And so it's a little hard to sit there and say, well, we're now 24 years later, and now it's time to revise it, maybe, So those are the types of things that, I'm certainly not going to commit to, yes, I promise you this, in 2 years, we're going to get that done. Please do not quote me in the weapons complex, because I said I'm not going to promise that. However, I think, again, ongoing progress and having now 2 of these under our belt is positive progress, and it'll be something that we can look to in the future to shorten the process and find efficiencies.
And just do what EM does, right? So the first time you use a tool, it's a little bit awkward. You might smash your phone, but the second time you do it, you're probably going to hit the nail, and now we're going to knock it out.
And to your point, just before I came into this room, we were having a conversation about and it always goes back to workforce. Being in rooms like this, we are not. Again, we can't assume that everyone's been around for 25 years and understands all of the nuances of our program. It's a very complicated program. I'm a big believer in the elevator speech, and doing the elevator speech about the high-level waste definition, even to EM audiences who know about all of our different types of waste, is challenging. And finding ways to meaningfully explain all of these different types of waste, and high-level waste is this, but this was a legislative definition, not a scientifically based one. And I think back to my other point of interconnectedness, every time we can continue to make progress and have footprint reduction and have success in the program and demonstrate confidence for all of our stakeholders, it helps us be successful for all of these individual types, like the high-level waste.
And I think it's important that we move this tool, to not just be a Savannah River tool. Seth's dying to join this
Yeah,
conversation.
exactly. So what's interesting, so, we, ECA probably fought for about 10 years for this, the implementation of this definition. And it was really bold when it came out. Everyone was like, oh my God, Department of Energy is going to get sued. We can't do this. And the Department of Energy did it. It was a very bold move for them to do it. And I credit them, EM, for doing that, and the department for doing that. I mean, it's real simple. GAO says we're going to save over $200 billion in our cleanup if this is implemented properly. So over $200 billion. The EM program is a $8 billion program right now. So it's usually $7 billion, it's $8 billion now. Think about how much money that is for the taxpayers. When I talk to the folks at Hanford or Savannah River, they're saying, wait a second, you mean you can move like 80 or 90% of our waste off our site and dispose of it properly if it's treated this way? This is great. This is protection for our community, human health and the environment. This is something that we want to look at. So, my job is to make these things simple for folks as they look at them. And treating the waste based on its constituency versus, where it came from, or how it was utilized, it's easy. So, I look at this as we hope the department will really implement this at the 3 sites that it really applies to. And, move this waste forward. I know the folks in Carlsbad, potentially want to see it. I know the private sites potentially want to see this move forward. So, anyway, we would love to see this move quicker. We recognize how it really works. 8 gallons at a time, though, won't get it done. So we need this to move forward.
Okay. Thank you. Dave, I know you've been wanting to also jump in, please.
Yeah, so as the receiver of some of this waste, we certainly see that some of the public perception on this is challenging. And so I guess what I would request everybody in the audience is that we don't assume that people understand what high-level waste interpretation is, that we reiterate that this is low-level radioactive waste we're talking about, that it's based on acceptability within a waste acceptance criteria for low-level radioactive waste, that it's characterized and it's identical to low-level radioactive waste that we already deal with. So that's really it's not a one and done thing to communicate this and then assume that everybody understands high-level waste interpretation. Most people, when they hear those words put together, people that aren't in this room think, oh my goodness, that's high-level waste, and somebody is changing the rules, cheating in some way to call it something else. It's not. It's low-level radioactive waste.
Yep. And we learned that lesson when we shipped the melter, right, from West Valley, right? What the first waste incidental reprocessing element that came, we had to say, that's how we determine that it's low-level waste, but don't call it weir waste. It's low-level waste, right? We have to keep talking about it as low-level waste.
Right.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so do we want to talk about test bed a little bit here while we're there as well? Come on, let's talk about it. What's happening in test bed? It's good news for once.
Yeah, for once.
For
Come
once.
on.
Sorry, for a second time. It's good news for a second time, Kristen.
We just started with successes.
Yes, you're right.
So we're in our second phase of the testbed initiative, also known as TBI, again with the acronyms. And so the department has selected waste control specialists and energy solutions in Clive, Utah, and they'll be in the second phase of the pilot, grouting and disposing of treated low-level waste coming from Hanford. And as you mentioned, 8 gallons can't get it done. The first phase was 3 gallons, and now the second phase, we're all the way up to 2,000 gallons. And we're—
That's more than 8, Seth.
Yes, there's lots more zeros in that number. And so, we just rolled this out fairly recently in EM time space, but what we're seeking to accomplish with this pilot is to demonstrate the viability of shipping low-level waste out of Washington State for safe immobilization and disposal. And by going to 2 different facilities, that'll help us kind of get some more lessons learned on the transportation to 2 different facilities. And we're looking at this pilot helping us inform accelerating the tank waste mission, leading to potential cost savings, like Seth was alluding to earlier. And, this pilot was informed by recommendations from National Academy of Science, the FFRDC, another acronym, but the Federally Funded Research and Development Center, and GAO, Energy Communities Alliance. We've all worked closely with all these organizations to help bring us to this place now. So we are certainly excited about the second phase and, looking forward to having more to report on it at this time next year.
Ooh, love that. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to make an editorial comment and then I'm going to jump to topic 4. So my editorial comment, again, as I was thinking about history and how much time and effort it took to develop this, aside from the new on-site disposal facilities that are going great, thank you to Joel's leadership, WCS was the only new disposal facility that entered this complex in the last 25 years, if you can believe that or not. I mean, again, enhancements at some of the existing facilities, but the only new disposal site. And it started operations almost 15 years ago. So I think that tells us something about the importance of retaining the options that we have, again, that connectivity, as well as exploiting and maximizing the use of those. And maybe we'll come back to that time permitting. We'll talk about WIP and GTCC, but I think first we should talk about challenges, since those are also ubiquitous. So who wants to share an important disposal-related challenge that should be prioritized in the next year? Anybody want to go first? Dave, you had something to say.
Sure. Yeah, I think we may have talked about it in earlier sessions, but certainly the stored transuranic waste that's at WCS is an important thing for us to move forward on. We've been working closely with the department and now have certainly, hopefully over this winter, a pathway to move that above ground so that it can be examined and so the next steps can be taken. I believe there's a notional schedule that has the waste moving out of the state by 2026, long desired, I think, by every party, and we're looking forward to that. There's obviously still challenges to get it done, but we should see some significant progress on that over the next 12 months.
And the plan is for it to go from WCS direct to WIP?
Yeah, so it's a two-step at this point. So what we're doing this winter is we will take it from our federal waste facility where it was placed quite a few years ago now, and we'll put in a permacon that's been constructed for it above ground. We'll have it taken out of the concrete containers it's in so that people can examine the standard waste boxes and perhaps pull headspace gas and do some boroscoping and so on in order to verify the condition of the waste before it goes to WIP.
Okay. And for those who don't know, this was the balance of the nitrate salts waste stream from Los Alamos. That was the waste stream involved in the breach drum event back in 2014 that were redirected from WIP to WCS for minimum storage after the fire in February. But before the actual the event, before the drum vented in, when was that? May, I think.
I don't recall.
All right, thank you. So I think that's an important challenge, and thank you for the update on that. Robbie, do you have anything you want to add?
Absolutely. So from a community standpoint, communication has to be something that is done on a regular basis. It's one of those things from my role that I'm working to bring our community leaders together so that we have a unified voice. We're talking with the site, understanding what's going on at the site, and we can be supportive and do things a little bit different than what we've done before. But it goes back to when you look at what's happening with the high-level waste interpretation, when you look at what's going on from, let's say, the naysayers, the NIMBYs of the world, if we don't look at a definition change on higher level waste from an official standpoint, there's always going to be people pointing back saying, well, you're just adjusting this to meet your needs versus explaining it to them in a way that they can get, because most people really do not understand what the waste is made up of. And until they understand that part, it's going to be a hard conversation. So for me, the single biggest challenge that we all in this room need to look at is understanding the general public and making sure we're communicating in an effective way there.
Thank you. And when you talk about the definitional change, are you speaking in actual statute, like open up the NWPA and get a legal clarification through Congress's actions and appropriations?
Honestly, I think making it as official as can be done is a whole lot easier political football to move forward than to bring back Yucca Mountain from a conversation right now.
I love your optimism. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to the dialogue.
I would add two. One is, and to follow up on Robbie, one is we definitely need a high-level waste site. We need the discussion to start again. So consent-based siting is on spent nuclear fuel. And so where's the discussion on high-level waste? This is a EM. This is their largest cost. There's no disposal pathway. That's why we put together this report, is because we want people to focus on that and recognize, once again, there is no path forward right now with that, unless the administration is going to, utilize the current law, which says to go forward with a geologic repository. And so no administration has been willing to do that for a while. We don't see administration in the future doing that, really. So how are we going to deal with high-level waste unless we're just, if the country is saying we're going to leave it in place, we've got to change a lot of different things. Safety has to change, everything else. There's a lot of investment. None of the communities that host it right now want it to stay there. So we have to deal with those issues as well. So that one. And then the other one is, we always joke around that one of our favorite acronyms in the DOE world is WAC. We like to say whip whack in our office, just as fun, whip whack. But waste acceptance criteria, it's really interesting. As we build these on-site landfills at the different sites, the biggest conflict has come because of when the department can tell people with certainty what you're going to dispose of in that landfill. I mean, it's a really simple thing. What's in the landfill, what's not in the landfill. And people hide behind the circular process to say, well, we can't really do that. We can't talk to you about it. And we've had some real detailed written pieces on that. But the reality is if you use the circular process, there's a process in Circular 120F, 9620F, that basically says the local communities can participate in the remedial action. There's been court cases on it and everything else. And so that's, to me, a false issue. And that, I think the department can save years off its time, off its processes, because that's where a lot of the conflicts come in doing that. And so, helping to define what that waste acceptance criteria piece, I think will help with those future on-site landfills as you're going forward.
Okay, thanks. This is so off our preparatory notes, so be prepared. This is a rocky. Do you see a future where maybe high-level waste gets separated from the spent fuel geologic repository just because it becomes such a commercial focus?
I mean, so the industry, it's really interesting. Bob Card, for those who remember him, he was deputy secretary at one point, came and yelled at some ECA members about whether it could ever be divided and those types of things. And he was right. He said, look, the reason why it's the Nuclear Waste Policy Act together is because you both kind of need each other as you're going forward. Right now, the industry, I think, is somewhat moving forward on the spent nuclear fuel, but that's also because of the way the Nuclear Waste Policy Act is written, that they kind of see a narrow way for them to address spent nuclear fuel. I actually think they have to go together because you need that full political constituency in order to make this successful. And if you're looking at spent nuclear fuel at one of our sites, which is what they're saying, by the way, in consent-based siting, one of our sites will be that site for interim storage. I think if the site that I think that they're thinking about, because of the way it's worked in the past, that state's going to say, I need a geologic repository. So in the end, for our high-level waste. So in the end, I think we still need it. It's just a matter of whether the politics will get there.
Okay. And of course, Yucca Mountain's design required the two, right? Because of the interspacing of the high-level waste canister casks with the spent fuel casks.
Or the
was part
politics.
And the politics, right. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So who else wants to talk? Wait, Seth, you've already talked, so I'm going to cancel your other previous topic. Kristen, what do you want to talk about? So you were excited about the IWTU celebration. So I celebrate IWTU's operation. What's going to happen to that treated waste form?
That was not what I was going to say.
Okay.
No, I was thinking about what Seth was saying while he was saying it, and I think, I'm going to reframe this as taking previous challenges and using them as a launching point to take some lessons learned and turn them into successes. And I think, Joel in the near-term future, so happy to pull him into the conversation, will be going through the disposal process at Paducah. And, one of the things we heard out of Oak Ridge was, I think, we got to the very end of the part where we were almost ready to have a public conversation, and there was this gap of, well, what percentage of the disposal cell is going to be radioactive? And it's a very, very small percentage, and that was news to everyone. And it was like, well, how did we get this far and not have that little conversation? So I'm going to take some of our challenges in the past and move them towards future successes. And I know, the disposal report that Seth mentioned, we talked about some, ways to always be better on including our stakeholders, including local governments in our decision-making earlier and earlier. And I think we could work for the next decades on, making it clearer and more understandable to all of our constituents. And that's, members of Congress, as if there's any kind of turnover in people that we're engaging with, they don't always have the same core understanding. So that, I think, is going to be an ongoing challenge for us. Speaking about IWTU, since you would like me to mention it.
Thank you.
That they have started hot operations, and there's the deputy secretary mentioned he's going out there next week to celebrate our ongoing progress there. But there still remains challenges at our sites. We've got the calcine waste that's at Idaho. We're trying to find new and innovative ways to treat that existing waste stream that avoid building a first-of-a-kind facility and doing, decades worth of planning and all of those types of things. So I'm going to go back and reframe my WTU as a success. So I guess I'm just ignoring your question, but I really think, we have lots of lessons learned now that we are a 30-year plus program and robust in everything that we've learned. I think we've gotten better at incorporating a lot of resources from the national labs and, having more independent research to certify the stuff that we're doing. But, I do think we always have room for improvement in how we are able to take all that information and making it meaningful to people who hear maybe some other feedback that's inaccurate and, finding a way to be more adept at correcting that misinformation as it comes to us.
I had the privilege of being part of an international discussion at Waste Management where a social scientist was basically saying the activists are so much better at communicating and getting the word out. And I think you were with me, right? Than we are, right? We have to get at least a little bit better so that we can keep pace with some of the misinformation that happens, right? Because people are out there. So,
and on that point, it's to me fascinating that in our pop culture space, we have a Miss America who is a nuclear engineering major. We have all of these memes out there about Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out the same day. We've got social media influencers who are also models and do TikTok makeup videos, but advocate strongly for nuclear energy. We have all of these things that I never could have imagined being available to us. We've got to harness them because, I'm a bureaucrat. I'm never going to be a social media guru, TikTok influencer and things like that. But
TikTok is not allowed on your phone.
I know.
Okay.
I will never have TikTok. My children are not allowed to have TikTok. That's a family rule. But the conversation is now about nuclear energy, and we have a huge opportunity to kind of reframe that conversation. We certainly have some opportunities to be more adept, and I hope we can take advantage of them.
Great points, thank you. Well, I'm going to go to our fifth topic, and then maybe we'll have some time to take questions since there are so many interested members here. I'm really excited about the attendance we have here. I think Kristen's comments are a great segue to sort of the why we're even here, right? So let's talk about the importance of alignment between the communities and the waste generators and disposers. And Dave, you've got an interesting story. I mean, you inherited that story, but thank God that you're here at the helm of WCS. So talk a little bit about how WCS works with its host community and what works there. And if there are any challenges, weak spots, you can gloss over them if you want, but we'd find them interesting.
Yeah, I guess one thing I wanted to talk about is that, as we approach new waste streams, and I mean as a complex, we approach new waste streams and go through all the steps that take many years to get there. There's quite a bit of drama, and there's drama, nationally, there can be drama locally as well. And, that's a necessary part of the process because we need to communicate what's happening and provide the information, and occasionally it may be misinterpreted. But once we do get through that process, it's so important that we can turn these things routine. And, in my mind, what that's about is, once you've started it, continue to do it, continue to communicate about it, and then don't stop, just keep the process going. Because when you stop, then you get into a restart, and a restart can seem like a whole new thing. And we've seen that before, certainly in the industry, where restarting can be a significant problem. So I would say that's one thing that I'm very interested in, is that once we go through the drama, which is required, it's part of the process, then let's turn some of these things more routine. Don't stop communicating, but make sure that we don't stop and start and treat it like it's a new event each time.
That's a really great comment. Thank you. Okay, who else wants to go? You want to go first? We'll come down the line then. Okay, so Joe, you'll be next. Get ready.
All right. So, Krista made a great comment earlier on now's a great time, given all the attention that's going on in nuclear. I echo that sentiment, probably to the next level. We were with ECA in Paducah. I guess I was 2 weeks on the job, and it was really telling to me because every community that was represented that has an EM or an NSA site was very clear. With new nuclear on the horizon, what's going on, they're open for business. Right now, you have a groundswell of community support for new nuclear, new energy opportunities, add in the industry day and everything going on there. I would say it's important that we leverage the communities who are excited, and let's use our communities to really share the story, show new successes, and really have a profound impact as we look forward. With doing that, on the topic from the activist standpoint, we also need to make sure that as we're promoting this new nuclear path forward, we've got to have some solution, or at least be driving to some solution as to what we're doing with this new supply of waste that's going to be coming out of there. The communities are going to want to know, and really, I think for long-term success, we all need to understand that.
Thank you. Joel?
Yeah, so you ask what the next big stuff is on the horizon, and Kristen touched it pretty well. So, we do need to start talking about, on-site, off-site waste disposal discussion at Paducah, but I'll say bigger than that. And we just awarded a grant to the Paducah Chamber to facilitate an economic development study for the Paducah site. We don't want to get out in front of the community. We want the community to go, hey, this is what we envision for the Paducah site, the next chapter, okay? And then we want our mission to complement that. The other thing I would pitch out there, the decision to have on or off, I'll say, much like Portsmouth, like Paducah, I mean, it's bigger than just that, okay? It's really about the future use of the site. We're not a Hanford, right? We don't have hundreds and hundreds of square miles of real estate on the federal reservation. We're not like a Savannah River, hundreds of square miles of real estate on the reservation. Portsmouth and Paducah, each pretty much just under 6 square miles of real estate, okay? And so every bit is valuable real estate, all right? And you don't want to squander any of it, okay? And you want to be strategic in your thoughts. And so that's what I believe the discussion going forward is. We want the community to lead that discussion, okay? And then we want to say, hey, how can we complement, the desires and look to the future? The nuclear conversation is going around, but you know what? Hydrogen generation, other clean energy projects, I mean, other industrial manufacturing settings, I will say Portsmouth and Paducah are very well suited to that. I mean, a gaseous diffusion plant. Where else can you, in Portsmouth, you can connect to the national grid, 5 independent transmission lines in a 100-acre footprint. Go find that somewhere, okay? Paducah is a very similar from an infrastructure standpoint. I mean, it's a national asset and a local community asset, and we're also one of the bigger employers at both locations, right? So it's a very important conversation. And so anyway, that's what we're looking out to the future. And I will say, and you hear it at the National Cleanup Workshop in 2023, watch out, Paducah is the next one. That team is pumped, they're excited, and we're starting to roll, so stand back.
Love it. Thank you, Jill. All right. Dave, do you have anything more you want to offer? You know, when we were preparing for this panel, you made a point, and I touched on it, right? These commercial facilities have to exist. Do you have enough forecast waste coming your way to stay viable for forevermore?
Well, the benefit of our site is we have, both the federal side of things and the commercial side of things. And I would say commercial is a very steady market. Department of Energy can be more cyclical. But between the two of them, it does make, I think for both us and for Energy Solutions, it provides enough continuity to do that. So I hope the department continues to ship waste to us, but we can deal with things on the commercial waste side as well.
Okay, so stable. I'm hearing stable. Good job. Kristen, anything else you want to add before I give the final word? Okay.
Sure. So, it's funny, when I think about waste, we worked on a project in Eastern Europe, believe it or not. I'm a lawyer also, and we did a financing for an interim storage facility, spent nuclear fuel. And the facility was sited and built in a couple of years. It was pretty easy. And it's amazing to see how quickly that process went forward compared to our process here, right? And when I think about all these different pieces, they're very much political decisions, almost 80-90% of it. You have to pick the right sites, obviously. You have to pick the right technology in order to dispose of this waste and everything, and the right monitoring, and put the pieces in place. But we know how to do that.
Right,
internationally.
the safety case we can do, right? We can do that.
Internationally they do it, and just like so when we put together this report, what we wanted to do was really highlight for the communities that are hosting these facilities, both sender and receiver sites, don't forget, that's who we work with and that's who we represent, that this can be done. And so we just need to make sure that we keep our focus on it. So this, our industry doesn't necessarily focus on high-level waste disposal at the end process, because you don't have that large contracting community that you had at the Nevada test site at the time, Nevada National Nuclear Security Site, that was really focused on it and working on it. But if we want to have these things done, the complex is going to have to work together to make sure they occur. One of the other things is the private sites are just as important as our public sites as well, and we just need to make sure that we continue to support them to have those avenues available as well. Dave did not pay me to say that, but it's important. I tried to get him to say it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important because that's helping get our sites cleaned up and we can do the shipment. So those are the things that, we tried to highlight in our report, and those are the things that we want people to focus on as they look at it, because we have to keep people looking at the long term.
And the big picture.
In the big picture.
And the whole picture, yeah. Thank you, great comments. All right, Kristen, that brings it to you. You got the final word before I turn the audience loose on y'all.
We have 5 minutes and 8 seconds. Very exciting.
Before lunch.
Of questions from the audience. So I think, what I've said this whole time is, continued progress, continued footprint reduction, continued successes in the program help us to be successful in the disposal program. And, there's been a lot of great progress, and I did have in my notes, I wanted to do a special shout out for a new partnership that we've put in place between our transportation office and the office of, or in the University of Nevada, Reno. And they were developing a brand new certificate program for nuclear packaging professionals, which, this program had some support from Argonne National Lab and several other national labs who provided SMEs to train this whole cadre of students to help us address our big needs in nuclear package processing. They received an award from the USA Graduate School, and so I just want to give them a special shout out. I think these types of programs, starting from scratch and building these pipeline programs in workforce space, which we've been talking about workforce all week and will continue to do so. There's a panel this afternoon you should come back and participate in. These are going to be innovations that we learn from and use in other places across the complex. And so it all, again, all continued progress helps us across all fronts. I'm a little surprised Seth didn't mention the new international partnerships that ECA has formed with their sister organizations across international borders. But I think the example you just gave is the perfect one of how we have much to learn from our international partners, and stakeholder acceptance and community acceptance and regulator acceptance is going to be key to us moving forward into the future, and everything we can learn from those interactions will help us moving forward. The last plug I wanted to give is that we're getting ready to do the strategic vision review again, and that's been something that we've made a lot more interactive with our stakeholders, and so encourage folks to treat that as both an educational opportunity to learn a little bit more about the program, but also to provide us your input to help us make decisions on disposal and other program areas moving into the future. I'll stop there.
Thank you. All right. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask, or comments, or just, compliments?
Maybe both.
Okay.
Hello, and thanks for the conversation. My name is Jim Milbauer. I am a Kennewick City Council member from Kennewick, Washington, and previously, my previous life, prior to retirement 2 years ago, was just under 40 years in the Hanford side as a pipe fitter, and half of that as a representative for pipe fitters and health and safety of workers on site in general. My concern with the change or possible change, or looking at the change of definition from high level to low level on the Hanford site would be there's a group being left out, and I feel that's to be the workers. I'm sure you're all well aware that there have been workers that have made ill and disabled, and at least one that I know of had died from the tank waste or the vapors off the waste anyhow. And the concern I have, and the concern that those I represent that live in Kennewick and work on site, as well as workers I've spoke to, have a concern that how can you change high-level waste from a definition one day from high level to low level the next day, even though there's been a lot of protection safety systems put in at the Hanford site to protect workers from vapors. To make that change, I think would show that the workers, there's going to be a change in safety protections and systems at that time, because you're no longer dealing with high level. How do you protect the workers against that? That's my question, if someone has a comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. And I think that is a really important element of our communication that we have to carry forward. So I mean that most heartfully. Thank you for that comment. I think I'll let you guys answer it. I mean, I probably shouldn't answer it. I'm no longer DOE. I work for John Longenecker. Who am I? Go ahead, Christy.
I'm going to answer this in a little bit of a roundabout way. So I took a legislation course in law school, and we were talking about the importance of, the impact of laws and how they're written in when they actually get implemented. And the definition that is in play for the Nuclear Waste Policy Act for high-level waste is based on where the waste originates. And so if it is defense waste, as it was previously interpreted, it meant that it was immediately labeled as high-level waste. But from a scientific or a RAD perspective, we have quantities of waste that don't meet that criteria. And so that was what was targeted in this high-level waste interpretation. And so from a safety perspective, from a radiological perspective, the definition is not appropriate to call it high-level waste. Certainly we have quantities of high-level waste, no doubt. And so this was, the interpretation seeks to address that reality and see the potential cost savings involved with the treatment options for something that is not radiologically high-level waste. So, and I do think your perspectives are incredibly important, and helping people understand the very definition as a starting point to understanding the implications of what these activities mean for the workers and for the local communities and those in the local region near our sites is incredibly important. And I hope that answers your question, but would have anyone else from the panel jump in?
Yeah, well, I'll just add that, and I hope I'm not wrong, but DOE's nuclear safety rules and protections are not specific to waste type, right? They're addressing, you build a safety case and your authorization basis is around the hazards of the material as they are the material, right? So the fact that waste in a tank is coming out and is going to be solidified as a low-level waste and then characterized to be low-level waste form and off-site for disposal, there's going to be a safety case for every, and an authorization basis that's protective of the workers and the public for every step of that. And the fact that it's going that path versus another, I don't think anything in this disposition path would change the protections of the workers. There's certainly nothing in the DOE safety orders that say you protect the workers from high-level waste differently than you protect them from low-level waste. We still have to analyze the hazards. Our safety protections are not generic. They're very specific to the situation. So, but the fact that we have to communicate that is a very, very real thing, right? I mean, we have to over-communicate that. So thank you, again, thank you for your comment. Does anybody else want to opine on that? Ooh, red, blinking
Yeah.
lights,
Yes, I know.
lunchtime. Thank you for your comment, and thank you for the dialogue and the response. And can I have a hand for these panelists? I really enjoyed this. And truly, congratulations on your successes. I'm so glad you guys are doing this, what you're doing, so keep it up.